Hi class, how you doing? All right, welcome to week two. So just a quick review of week one. We just pretty much introduced the class. We took a look at logo design, logo development as it is related to branding, in this case specifically to personal branding. We also introduced the class, looked at late work policies, final projects, et cetera, et cetera. So this week we're just going to kind of really jump into things and start work right on our branding package by developing our logos. So let's go through the module really quick, and then we'll take a look at some specifics. Okay, so module two, logo design. This is a pretty important introductory few paragraphs right here. So you definitely want to read that. It just kind of gives us the lay of the land, what's happening in week two. So we have the week two logo design, and I'm going to jump over to that page because it's pretty important. Just want to point out a couple of things that you really want to be aware of. So module two logo design, we have our learning objectives here, our module at a glance, and I really wanted to bring your attention here to these readings and resources. These are going to be specifically relevant to the successful submission and response posts for this week's discussion board, which is this week's discussion board is on ethics and sociocultural practices. I'll get into that in 1 second, but let's get back to the actual module 2 logo design itself. So you want to kind of take a look at these. These completion of this course, students will be able to. This should actually say in completion of this week. So you really want to take a look at these and just make sure every week that you're going through these learning objectives and applying your knowledge. My recommendation is to take a look at the learning objectives at the beginning of the week, then go through all of your learning materials for the class. And then after you go through those a little bit later on in the week, go through the learning objectives, just make sure that you have a good checklist here, that everything here is making sense to you. If not, I would recommend reviewing the portions that aren't making sense so that they can be applied to your discussion board and assignments for the week. Okay, so we've got the logo design, and we've got this discussion ethics and sociocultural practices. And again, I just want to draw your attention to this module 2 logo design in its relationship to 2-1 discussion. In this page, module 2 logo design, you're going to find a ton of resources here that are going to help you addressing the discussion board for question for week 2. And guys, don't just jump into this and kind of wing it. I mean, it's going to be really kind of super painfully obvious if you haven't done your research using the resources in the class. So definitely want to make sure that you get in there, take a look at as many of these as you possibly can. Use these and refer to these in your discussion board as well. And then we have our 2-2 final project 1, milestone 1, logo design. In this assignment, you'll begin to design the most important component of your personal branding. That's your personal logo. And we've talked enough about logo during week 1. So remember to keep all of those things in mind. You want your logo to identify you basically by personality and some traits, but you really don't want to lock yourself into some sort of a really unique, highly stylized design that is specifically relevant only to your either design style or your area of expertise. And the reason I say that is because in branding, you want to keep yourself as versatile as possible. We talked in week 1 about, and I'm just going to use this example, feminine versus masculine logos, as opposed to using a more neutral logo. And a lot of students are beginning to understand it. Overly feminine or overly masculine design style might be the style you prefer, but that's not necessarily the style you want to represent in your branding. The reason being is because if you have a brand logo marked, if let's say you're an extremely aggressive designer, and you have an extremely aggressive logo mark using extremely aggressive typography and colors, that's great if that it represents you as a designer who has a specifically aggressive style. However, you may reconsider that style for your branding because quite often hiring professionals will kind of group you into these categories based on the visual language and representation of yourself in your marketing and branding package. And the reason I say that is because it's really important for you to keep in mind that you don't want to be categorized as an extremely aggressive designer. So when a studio is looking for a designer, they're going through all sorts of hiring presentations and packages and going through all sorts of resumes and portfolios. And one thing they're looking for is good, solid branding. And that is a neutral branding, not a branding that points to any specific style, any specific genre, so to speak. So you really want to concentrate on keeping yourself neutral so that you will be perceived as a very versatile designer. Okay. So that's 2-2, Final Project 1, Milestone 1, Logo Design Roughs. Now, I do want to draw your attention to something in the announcement right up here. I just left this right here. When you're submitting your roughs, don't forget this requires that you submit. Here's the rubric for that. But you're going to submit 3 design roughs. These are roughs using Illustrator. Okay, so it's really important now. These aren't sketches at these points. Sketches you would have done on your own time. You're just going to compile your sketches and submit your roughs in Illustrator, compiled in Illustrator, submitted as a PDF. Really consider these, guys. Consider these. We talked about this as well right here. Should it be elegant, whimsical, modern, traditional, playful? So keep that in mind and keep this kind of whole versatility thing in mind as well when you're working. Here is your critical elements for your personal logo. Keep that in mind. Please keep these in mind because these are right off the rubric. And this is how I grade. I don't pull any surprises at all. If it's on the rubric, it's fair game. I grade directly off the rubric. So my recommendation is to keep the rubric open while you're designing your logo. Okay, enough of that. So then we have our 2-3 blog, share your website URL, and that is your, if you're using 410, that's great. At the very least, if you're going to use 410, the site that you developed in 410, go ahead and present the URL. But at the very least, go ahead and try to set up a dedicated 420 page for this class. I'm saying is that you should have your 410 site, just add another section, GRA 420 or personal branding or something like that, so we have a dedicated section. And the same thing holds true if you have any other website that you have developed and you're kind of piggybacking off that website. If you decide to design a new site for this class, that's fantastic. Just give us the URL and we'll have a basic look at the basic bones of the website. Don't forget, if you're designing a new website, it's going to kind of be a work in progress because basically what you're going to do is design it based on your branding, right? So keep that in mind. And then at the very least, if you don't have a website and don't intend on actually building a website, you're always welcome to use a Behance page. And in this particular case, if you have a pre-existing Behance page, make sure that you dedicate a section of that page for GRA 420 for this class. Advanced Digital Imaging, specifically to showcase your branding that you have been working on throughout the duration of this class. Okay, and then so you'll share that, and again, try to get that as developed as you can in terms of having that dedicated page. I know you won't be filling it much at this point, but at least have your dedicated 420 page set up. Okay, guys, that's what I have for Module 2. Let's go ahead and jump over to the announcements real quick, make sure I'm not skipping anything. So welcome to Module 2. What do we have here, guys? We've got introduction here. We've got these examples. Now, these are sketches, right? But you're going to be submitting mock-ups. I just wanted to include this as the importance of numbering your sketches so that we can identify them easily in the situation where we'll be talking about your work and critiquing your work, etc., making recommendations for improvements. Got 5 types of logo right here. This is really great. You'll definitely want to take a look at that. Recommended reading, and then we have additional reading. So take a look at that. Discussion board topics. Again, another note on your required website, and so on and so forth. So it's all pretty self-explanatory. It's all self-explanatory here, guys. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or you need any further clarification, please let me know. I'll be glad to provide any clarification in that regard. All right, guys, that's all I have. Thank you so much. Great job during week 1. Welcome to week 2. And again, guys, I'm right here for any questions at all. Thank you very much.